if I was still in law enforcement today, I would not be able to do the job. I see what's going on in the media, what's going on in our country and social media, and I am so glad getting pushed out from my police department at first felt like the worst thing that could have ever happened to me because that was my career. I loved it. And getting pushed out because of what I dealt with and what I was trying to battle from within, which was, racism. I was the only one who looked like me at my department. But then you realize a short time later, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Them pushing me out of the police department helped catapult everything else in my world. I wouldn't have gotten into the commercial real estate. 221B Tactical wouldn't be this global brand right now because I would have been gripped working as a police officer trying to do a little bit on the side. I share that story because there are so many times in life when people are so focused on the thing that's hurting them and they're not focused on what may come of this hurt. So thank you guys, because that hatred and that racism, that animosity made me a multi-millionaire.
Welcome to another episode of the podcast. You have myself, Brian Gold, my co-host Swintz, and my good friend Suresh. How's it going, buddy?
Oh, it's going great. Good to be here.
Operating on no sleep today?
Zero sleep squad.
Yeah, but in and out at 12:30 in the morning was worth it.
It was almost 1 a.m, yeah. And the line was out of control.
Bro, the line was fucking out of the lot. Next to LAX.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That one gets crazy.
But the airport was empty-ish.
Yeah. That's good.
I was like, oh, and then we saw a flipped over car on the way home.
Yeah. It was so bizarre because
Middle of the 405.
Oh, man.
on its roof.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
Wonder what happened.
I don't know what happened.
There was the last time I was on my way to LAX early in the morning, like 3 or 4 a.m. I had an early flight, and there was a dude that had just stopped in like a little pickup and was like getting stuff out of his car, but he was dead stop, no lights in the middle of the 405, and like people were like flying. I almost hit him, and so did a bunch of other people. But I'm like, bro, get to the side of the road, because
Do you want to die?
yeah, fuck that shit in your car, bro. Somebody's about to hit this thing for sure, And yeah, it's gnarly. The 405 can be dangerous.
The only benefit of nailing the back of a pickup truck is the crumple zone.
I mean, he was like standing on the side of his car. He got hit. He was done.
Done.
He's done.
He was like reaching in there to like get his stuff out. But I'm like, bro, you got to get to the. He was in the second to the fast lane. No lights on, dead pitch black in an area where there's no lights. I'm like, oh, bro, I'm in a Tesla with bright ass lights, and it took me a while to see him that he wasn't like.
And the
like
Tesla
moving.
didn't even warn you.
No, I moved, but yeah, it was still a little, yeah.
I feel like people don't have a clear understanding of what happens should they even get clipped by a car. In my time as an officer, I actually unfortunately saw what happens.
Yeah.
And anything over, I think it's 35. I was an actual accident reconstructionist, and where you would go to fatal motor vehicle accidents or serious motor vehicle accidents and really reconstruct what happened based on the skid marks, based on the digs in the road, things like that. Anytime anyone is going over about 30 miles an hour, that's when you start losing limbs.
Yeah.
And people say 30 miles an hour, that doesn't sound very fast, but
I'm surprised it's that high.
that's about when it starts,
Yeah.
25, you're going to obviously be hurt. 30, I think 30, 35 is when you start losing limbs. And I see people out of their car on the interstate all the time without really thinking about what happens. And we would see people in Jersey, it was called the Garden State Parkway, it was a main thoroughfare. And people would get hit all the time just on the side of the road doing some stuff with their car. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, get out of the road.
Yeah.
Like, this is not where you screw around.
No.
Obviously, if you're broke down, one thing, whatever. But yeah, people don't really have a concept of that.
I mean, you see the officers and the tow guys that get hit all the time.
Yep.
It's such a dangerous job because it seems like it's almost like a magnet that
Mm-hmm.
The
you
flashing
would think
lights,
that you're like,
Yeah.
but just they're there and then they just get nailed. You see all the footage of it. It's scary, man. It's not a good place to be.
Florida just passed, and I don't know if there's other states, but Florida just passed a law that it used to be you had to move over a lane for emergency workers, police, fire, EMS, and tow truck drivers. They just amended the law where you now have to move over if anyone is there. If anyone is broke down on the side of the road,
You got to jump away.
you have to jump over a lane and give them that space. If you don't, you get a pretty serious ticket.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. I think it's just common sense. I can't believe there needs to be a law that when I was 17 and I started driving, if I saw someone broke down on the side of the road, I would just kind of move over a little bit, but now there has to be a law, which is kind of weird, but
There's not a lot of common sense,
no, it's kind of, and
especially on the roadway.
yeah, I think it's dwindling.
It is.
I
I
think
think in general.
Yeah. What did I seen something that said
I feel like you sent me a meme on it.
no, there was like it was an old manual to a car. And like the old school manuals to cars, like it used to tell you how to like change your transmission fluid and take the car apart basically.
yeah.
Now it says don't eat the transmission fluid.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's not telling you that we're going backwards.
We got a problem.
It's so wild, right?
Yeah. I seen another thing recently that handyman, because people are getting more and more just not wanting to do anything for themselves, that there's a bunch of dudes that have started like handyman type businesses that are making well over 6 figures. Some are $1 million businesses just hanging TVs and fixing general appliances around the house.
Or just even paint touch-ups.
Because nobody wants to do it. I mean, I come from an era where like people changed their own oil and did all of this stuff themselves,
Yeah.
And now it's like we're in the pay somebody else to do everything phase, but a generation dies and we're out here like idiocracy, just not knowing what to.
Right.
I don't know what to do anymore.
Yeah, to me, maybe it's old school. I got to be careful of how I say this, but as a man, I feel like there's certain things in your home and with your vehicles you need to know how to do. Are you going to do it all the time? Maybe not all the time, right? Because I have my cars and I take them to get the oil changed at the shop I go to,
Of course.
and things like that. But when I have friends call me up and they say, "Hey, my faucet's leaking or my toilet's not working right, whatever. Do you know anything about this?" Like, because I've been renovating houses and flipping houses for over 20 years, and I'm like, yeah, you just gotta take the lid off the tank. Yeah, I don't know what's going on in there. Can you just swing by? I'm like, man, bro, like, what is going on right now? You are a man. You are married with children. You own a home.
Yeah.
Your toilet's running a little bit.
You fucking
Like,
a little clicker thing.
come on, man. Like, this is like basic stuff. But you're right. We've entered this generation of dudes just don't know how to be dudes anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying by any means go rip the roof off your house and try to put a new one on, which I could do that if need be. But the basic things that I feel like men just always did back in the day on their own. And it's no surprise that little handyman stuff is now the booming business.
Yeah.
Because people just, I don't know when that shift occurred, when people said, I'm going to stop doing things with my hands and stop learning how to do things. And I'm just going to just focus on doing, I don't know, sit on my computer and like scroll on Instagram or whatever. To me, part of being a man feels like knowing how to do that. I'd be embarrassed.
Yeah.
I'd be embarrassed if I had to like call another man, one of these handymen, to my house and be like, "Hey, yeah, my toilet's running a little bit. Can you help fix that?" I'd be embarrassed. I don't know. And then you got to pay the $400 bill.
Exactly.
Because it's $299 for them to show up. Just pull into your driveway.
To jiggle the handle
or turn the
tell you that there's
turn
a
the float.
That's it. A float. Turn the float, or just there's a little kink in the thing, and it's like simple stuff.
Oh, the chain fell off the
Yeah.
handle. Yeah, let me just hook this chain back on.
You can see all the sediment that's sitting in the tank that you just got to clear out.
Yeah. Oh, it's so wild. Yeah, but hey, it's the world we live in, right? And it's good. People are taking advantage of that.
That is good.
Take care.
I'm happy for him. It's cool that
me
man
too.
can that still wants to do these jobs or these tasks that can make a really good living off of it. Good for them, man.
Yeah.
We can never find Sal.
Yeah, because he's busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
nonstop.
you're busy. It used to be that those guys had trouble
Finding.
staying busy
Yeah.
because
And even
people
like
didn't want to pay for them to do it. Now it's like you can't get them to show up because they're like, we're booked, bro. Like, I'm
They're
just
open.
jiggling handles now.
Yeah, making $1 million a year. Oh man, you know who I can't get to show up?
Who?
The car wash guy.
Really?
The car wash guy
Busy.
is so busy.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable. So there's two people who I can never get, ever. And when you call them, they're a month out or 5 weeks out.
You don't have it on the schedule.
The car was so now I got him on the schedule because of that, because he said, listen, I could tell you're kind of getting annoyed. I said, well, I'm not getting annoyed, but I would used to say, hey, can you stop by tomorrow or the next day? He'd say, yeah. But then it turned into, it's going to be, I'd call him on a Monday and he'd say, oh, it's going to be Friday. Oh, okay. So then it turned into, oh, it's going to be next Tuesday. Oh, it's going to be next Friday. Wait a second. It's a Monday and you're saying next Friday. What's going on? He said, man, I'm busy. And he just drives around with a little car and he tows a little trailer behind him with the little generator. And I said, man, you're that busy? He's like, yeah, I'm that busy. So I said, okay, I like this guy, but I'm going to give another guy. Actually, this guy, God bless him, it was a young man, young black guy. I was getting gas, and he saw the car I had. I had one of the crazy cars, and he just walked right up to me, and he said, sir, I do mobile detailing. I just want to let you know, here's my card. I see you have a nice car here, and, if you, want to take care of it. I said, oh, thank you. I said, all right, great. Young guy. He must have been early 20s. It's like, all right, good for him. He's hustling. He had a little pickup truck. So a couple weeks later, I get him a call. I said, hey, my guy that I usually get is busy. Can you come by? He's like, yeah, it's going to be like next week. And I'm like, what? And he said, yeah, like that's how stacked I am. He's waking up and he can't come wash my car because he's doing car washes morning to night for the next 8 days. Like, wow, that is incredible. That's so amazing. Growing up, I washed my own car, but I only had one car, and it was, I was broke. So I went out there with the bucket and whatever. I did everything. The other people that are 2 months out are the dog washing people, the dog grooming people, the mobile one. 2-3 months, 2-3 months out. Yeah. I called the other day and the woman said, how's April 20 something? I said, my dog is dirty now. April 20 something. What are you talking? She said, I'm booked. I'm fully booked. So I called another one, fully booked. I called a third one, fully booked. So my mind started kind of wheeling around, right? Because what you guys, once you see something like this, you're saying there's money to be had here.
Yeah.
If they're booked out 2 months, there's a need in that market. So I'm thinking to myself, maybe I buy a Sprinter van and hire someone to go around washing dogs.
Yeah.
You'll be booked out.
Oh, you will. And they like vet you almost at this point. Like to be, what kind of dog is it?
Yeah.
No, they will. I have a Corso and they're like, there's not too much grooming to do and they don't want to deal with big dogs and they get weird about it. It's like not getting them to come. They'd rather do a poodle or something that's going to be a little more manageable and a little bit more to do, right?
Yeah.
They charge more for that than our dog.
Oh yeah, of course, because there's more to do. I mean, you got to dry them, you got to do
fucking
stuff,
style their hair, snip it.
Yeah, but they do that.
You find people are afraid of that breed?
I find that they're very naturally intimidating.
Yeah,
they are what people are afraid of in a dog, just the way they look.
Yeah,
and there's one more thing that I see in them is that they have a very human-esque, like, he's not a barker. He just stares at you, and that's terrifying.
That is.
And it looks like he knows that you know that he knows that, like, and mine's not a super huge one.
Yeah.
But he's very agile and fast.
Yeah.
And
I still wouldn't fuck with him.
There's just knowing that there's nothing you can do. Like, if you don't want him to do something, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a physical specimen.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a physical specimen. You know what I mean? I'm sure people look at you and be like, I'm not trying to get in a race or a wrestling match with this guy.
Yeah.
That's how this dog is. It's like, it's obvious that when my dog gets loose and he's off, people stop what they're doing and stare. Frozen.
Waiting.
The neighbors, they're like this with the kids. While I'm like, he's good. He's just trying to walk himself, but he has that effect on people. Yes, definitely.
Oh my God.
And they're great dogs though.
Yeah.
Very, very family oriented.
I heard that.
Yeah, the guy just wants to chill. I mean, he's got a couple different barks. He is very protective of the house.
Yeah.
They do their job for sure, 100%. But they are very great with the kids, super gentle. They just want to lay around and be kind of dopey, like big dogs are usually.
Yeah.
But he definitely has the pause effect. Where you're like, okay,
Yeah.
this is this is another type of element here, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that command presence. You know,
Yeah.
they used to say that in police work. Just walking into a room, if you have your uniform right and everything's right, you know, that command presence when you walk in the room, people just stop.
Quiet. Yeah.
My buddy, he had two of them, and his wife was like this tall, and she would walk with two of them down the street.
Yeah.
It would stop traffic.
Mhm.
People were just like, oh my god,
Yeah.
you know, they're like sentinels.
They
you know?
are.
And they don't need to bark.
Nothing.
They walk with this confidence
Mm-hmm.
that you just know.
Yeah.
You just know, like, this is not a line I want to cross because
No.
it's not going to end well.
I like that in a dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not even that he has to be aggressive, but that there is a line of responsibility that somebody trying to enter somewhere they shouldn't be is gonna look and be like, maybe this isn't the one.
This isn't the house.
Yeah.
This is not the house.
Let's not find out today.
This is not the house. In 13 years of police work, I never ever responded to a break-in to a house that had a dog, even a little dog.
Yeah.
But
People don't like dogs.
people just don't want to deal with the dog. They will go to the next house. And in speaking to some of the people that you end up locking up, they will tell you that. They just don't want to, because it's just simply noise. Even the little dogs are yapping. And it's going to draw attention, and they don't want to deal with it. So I talked to guys who did this for a living, breaking into nice homes. And they said, yeah, if there was a dog there, we just cased in another house.
Yeah,
we just
that's it.
moved on. I said, if it wasn't like if it was like a big dog or a guard dog, they're like, no, any dog.
They're yapping.
If there was a dog there, we just pick the next house.
Yeah.
That little thing. I said, what about like alarm system? They're like, no, alarm system, man, we don't really care about that. It was a dog.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Well, if my dog's barking, I leave him out in the backyard. My neighbor calls me. Is everything all right?
Yeah.
He's loud enough.
Yeah.
Usually that's just we left and he's pissed off because he's outside and didn't want to be, and he's just barking at the back door. He does it from time to time, not all the time, but
Yeah.
the neighbor will call me. Hey, he shoots me a text. Your dog's been at it for like 20 minutes. Is everything good? Yeah, he's just pissed that they left him outside probably or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you're right. It does. People notice that and notice that something's off.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great deterrent.
Mhm.
Really good.
Yeah, you don't want to find out though.
I mean,
I wouldn't jump your back fence.
No, I tell people all the time that, well, my buddy's a dog trainer, and he had told me for years and years and years, he was in the music world as well, and he would always get these musicians to have protection dogs because he said, you know, you can have a gun all you want, you can have security. He said, people don't fuck with dogs.
Yeah.
People don't fuck with protection dogs, especially.
Yeah.
They don't.
They don't want to find out.
It just we have a natural thing from a child that like we are, everybody is kind of gets that little emotion around animal, you know, especially one that knows what to do.
Yeah, well, that's one that you know is kind of trained is
Yeah.
even more dangerous. We would have, thankfully not that often, but once in a while there were incidents where we had a group of unruly people, let's say, and we would have 6 or 7 police officers there yelling, screaming, and the mob didn't care. The group
No.
of people didn't care. People were coming out of their apartments and surrounding the police officers, surrounding the cars. And a couple of those times you're like, oh man, we're outnumbered here.
Yeah, it could be bad.
This could be bad. And you know, we have weapons. Someone in the crowd could have a weapon. You don't know. But obviously that's like the last thing you want to do. There's kids around, whatever.
Yeah.
Canine guy would show up, pop that door of that car, and bring that dog out. And it was like the lights turned on and the ants were like gone. It was crazy.
One little guy.
One guy, one dog would pull up. That dog is barking and all of a sudden froze. He'd get out, open that back door, clip on that lead, and pull that dog out. And you look. By the time he got out of the car, everyone was gone. You're like, what the hell? There were 7 dudes look like me yelling at people. Get back, come on, get back, going back inside. You know, no one listening. Pup comes out.
Nobody wants to get bit.
No one wants. It's it's like almost like innate, right?
It is an innate
When
nature.
we're, like you said, children. You're like, oh my God, I don't want. These people were not afraid of cops with guns and batons, but they were afraid of that dog.
I feel like guns actually make situations worse
A lot of times.
and
they
a
do.
lot of times.
They
you
do.
know?
A lot of
I
times.
feel
they
like
do.
people are less afraid of like I feel like that brings like the dog out in somebody to feel threatened in that manner for some reason. It makes them act out of character almost.
You're not wrong.
In business, I try to have security without I mean, we have armed security at our retails and stuff, but I prefer them to like not be the guys with their boots tucked in, because I just want somebody that's not gonna cause a altercation or something.
You want the guy that blends in.
That's just there to do the job and observe and report.
Yeah, right. Yeah, not so much be like this intimidator enforcer hanging out, but just he's there.
He's there.
Yeah.
So people can see it. Yeah, because a lot of times it makes people get to be defensive and want to like jump into that situation. It doesn't seem like a deterrent in a lot of cases.
Yeah. There were a lot of times where I would go to a call, it's very tense, and I could understand. There's a man, a woman, and his children, and they're in his house, and they got into some sort of dispute. And they're in their, I don't know, 40s, 50, I don't know. And now I'm coming in at 24 years old.
Yeah.
And, coming to, de-escalate the situation or whatever it might be. And of course, there's a little bit of a sense of who the hell is this guy? He's coming in. And then on top of it, he's walking in with a gun and a badge. And, different situations happen. But there's always. And so I've had people say people's emotions are elevated. I get it. 99% of the time when you deal with the police, it's not for a good thing.
Yeah.
So. And I know, like you said, like people see the gun and the badge and automatic, they're like, oh, and people would say, what do you think you're coming in here with that gun and badge? And you're going to tell me what to do. And I would sometimes say to people, you want me to go take it off? You want me, like, because I could just come in here as just a dude, right? My job is not with this badge and this gun. My job is the neighbors or your wife's mother or your mother called the police because there was a problem here. The children are scared. They're crying. There's something going on. I'm not coming in here to solve this with my badge and my gun. I'm coming in here as an independent third party. If you feel better, you want me to go take this off and is that going to make you feel better? Is that the difference here? And that would kind of like bring people down a little bit because they realize I'm not coming in like that. I'm coming in just to, hey man, I'm just like trying to talk. I'm just trying to talk. And you would go to sometimes calls where people who are mentally disturbed and they're thinking bad thoughts, maybe they want to harm themselves, and like you said, you walk in and that's all they see this guy. They don't even see like what I am. They see a gun and they see a badge, and it now elevates their emotion. And I'd always say, bro, I don't even want to be wearing this. It's uncomfortable. It's so stupid. This thing's like clinking around. This thing's heavy. It's always bumping into walls. I would just have a conversation like that to let them almost feel like this stuff I didn't even want to be wearing. I said, I'm just coming to talk to you, bro. I'm just coming to talk to you. Just they make me wear it, but I never use this stuff. And it would bring everyone down a little bit. It was really like a difference maker. So you hit it on the head. That sometimes it makes the situation worse.
Yeah.
Because most people have never touched a gun in their life.
Yeah.
And most people have never even been in vicinity of a gun. Most people. Yeah. Right? Most Americans. And if they saw a gun, they wouldn't know what to do with it. Most police officers don't realize that. They don't realize that. They don't realize that the majority of people have never been in proximity of a firearm. And it's a very intimidating thing. They've only seen it on TVs and in the movies where people are getting shot and killed with them, right? So that is something I realized early on. And I realized I had to start de-escalating. By the time before I even walked in the door, I had to start de-escalating because people see a firearm enter a situation into a home or anything it might be, and the mood changes. They're like, oh shit, someone with a gun is here.
Yeah.
This is, in their mind, this is a bad thing. And when the police show up, it's not a bad thing. They're there to help. We're there to help. But you have to have that conversation and let them know, like, hey, no one's getting shot here.
Yeah.
That's not the purpose.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have the same, it goes back to like Western, it's supposed to be the peacekeeper, right? The keeper of the peace. There was the guy in the town that wore the badge, probably didn't want to wear the badge, but because he was the one that got called when there was something going on in the town,
Yeah.
And now we have a different stigma around the authorities and activity that is like, it's gone obviously just in a negative direction.
Yeah,
And it's a tough, obviously, it's a, I don't want to say terrible job because it does a lot of good, but also it's a tough job.
It's a tough
It
job.
just, like you said, immediately, you don't want to be there. You don't want to be there as much as anything else.
Yeah.
The whole point is that we don't ever have to show up because everything's being handled as adults, right?
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that somebody entered you into this situation now, and immediately you're defending yourself when you get there because you're the bad guy entering somebody else's situation.
Yeah.
It's tough. Yeah.
Yeah. I always would say, I always put that out there. I would say, I wasn't just driving by and decided to stop in here.
Yeah.
You didn't?
Just so you know, I wasn't just driving by and be like, oh, that house. I'm gonna pull in and go get up in their business and see what's going on. No, someone who is concerned called. Someone who's concerned called 911.
Yeah.
It wasn't me. If you want to find out later who it was, you can, but it wasn't me. But here I am. Here I am. Just like if you called because your child was choking or something happened, right? You would call. You would call. Or maybe if you heard something next door or you were concerned about something,
Yeah.
you would call, right? You called your parents. They usually pick up the phone. They didn't pick up the phone. You're 30 minutes away. You're worried maybe a medical incident. Hey, can you go over there and, knock on the door? And if no one answers, I want you to break the door down. We'd get those calls sometimes. And that's someone's calling us. So we would go to a house sometimes and be looking for a way to get in. And someone would be looking at us, be like, what are you guys doing over there? We're not trying to break into this person's house because we're bored, right? Like someone called us here. They're worried about someone inside might be dead. Their parents, trust us. We didn't just come here, and people, they would stop people and they would say, oh, yeah, you're right. Like we didn't just show up,
It's unfortunate because you get the call and then you have a responsibility to follow through with that to make sure that you guys don't end up liable for a situation that didn't get checked up on, right?
Yeah.
Because as soon as something does happen and you weren't there, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Or it's the department's fault. It's the list of going down the thing to the city and everybody else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So people don't understand that somebody has entered this into the situation now. And now there is, a line of things that have to be checked off to make sure that there's not going to be any fingers pointed in the wrong direction now because of this.
Yeah, and it's a chain of CYA,
Yeah.
right? So people don't understand when we would get called. Sometimes people would call in the neighborhood. They call call the department. Like, people are speeding on my street. A kid's gonna get hit. My kid's playing the street. It's 25 and people are speeding. Okay, we'll send an officer out there. So I'd go out there and I'd sit on the side of the road. And I would wait, kind of hiding, and I'd wait for a car to go by that was speeding. And then a car would go by that was speeding and I'd pull him over. 99.9% of the time, who do you think, where do the people live that I'm pulling over?
Right there.
Right there. They're right there. So after a while, you start getting the attitude from the people. So you back off. So I just back off because we just kind of had a rule where we don't really want to write tickets to people who live in the town and they're residents. We'll give them warnings. So we back off. And then what happens? They get the call again at headquarters. Hey, where are the police? People are speeding here. What's going on? I pay taxes. And they would say, hey, so they'd come back and be like, why aren't you out there? Be like, everyone was from the neighborhood, whatever. And so they would call back and say, hey, by the way, we sent someone out there and it was all the residents that, so we kind of gave out some warnings and let them go. So maybe you want to old school.
Yeah.
Talk to your neighbors. Instead of just calling the police department over and over again, how about you get together and talk to the people in your neighborhood and be like, hey, listen, we all got kids here. We walk our dogs. No one wants to die, right? It's us here speeding. Can we do something about it? But if I don't go out there, and someone did get hit, you better believe it's rolling down.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to go from the chief. It's going to go from the mayor to the chief to the lieutenant to the patrol sergeant right down to me.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, why don't you go out there? What were you doing? What were you doing? I'm like, so like you said, once we get the call, we are injected into the algorithm.
Exactly.
we are
people all the time. That's the way it works.
Yeah.
If you enter the courts, you enter the authorities, if you enter anything into a situation, It's basically saying that we can't handle things like an adult and we need a mediator.
Yeah.
And a mediator has to come check the boxes to make sure that things are being done appropriately.
Yeah. And it's
And you might not like how the mediator treats it.
I mean, he doesn't want to be there as much as you
Yeah.
don't want them there in most of those cases, unfortunately. But this is what it is. It's in the algorithm now,
yeah.
and it's going to handle the way it's going to be handled. Yeah.
I tell young, and I say this only because of the situation I was in. I was speaking to different groups of young men of color.
Mm-hmm.
But I say this to anyone.
Yeah.
But because of some of the things that were going on in our society, in speaking to young men of color, I would say, question one, is the system broken? As far as police, law enforcement, the courts, you hear all these things. Black men are sentenced to longer terms for the same, offenses as white guys and all this stuff. You hear all this stuff. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter.
No, you hear it.
That's what you hear, and that's what you believe. And you believe that the, police are pulling over people of color more so, and all this stuff. Okay, fine. Let's just suppose that's all true. And I would ask them all, young teens, I'd say, do you believe that? And everyone would be like, yeah, okay, yeah. So, okay, so you believe all of that? Yes. Okay, so let me ask you something. Let's stop that scenario. If you guys were playing basketball and you were playing another team, and from minute one, from the whistle, every time you so much as went near someone on the other team, they blew the whistle and called a foul. You didn't even need to touch him. And anytime you remotely tried to play defense, they blew a whistle and called a foul. And anytime you took a shot near out of bounds, they said, no, you're out of bounds. And it was just repetitive. At what point would you say to yourself, okay, something's up with the refs here, and we either got to make a decision. We got to say, okay, we are going to just continue knowing we're going to get fouled. We're going to get fouls called on us and ultimately ejected because we're going to foul out. Or you just say, we're leaving. We're done. We're not playing in the game with refs that are clearly against us.
Yeah.
Right. And they all said the same thing. They said, we wouldn't play. Right. But just after like a couple of minutes, right, you wouldn't play. I said, now let me ask you something. If you went to another tournament, basketball tournament, and you arrived there and you looked and the ref is the same ref from that previous game and he's going to be the ref of this tournament, what are you going to do? They said, we are going to leave. I said, you're going to leave, right? Because you're not going to go onto that court because you know what he did last time. You're just going to leave, right? Okay. So what's broken? The system. The system of rules is broken because that guy is the system or whatever. So you choose not even to enter. You all just said you would not even enter. Awesome. When it comes to law enforcement and the justice system, if you know the system is broken, whether that's truth or not, leave. Avoid the system.
Yeah.
Don't do the things that enter you into the system. Don't do the things that you know are going to lead to things that are going to bring attention to you. You're driving your car, you're blacked out tinted windows, you got the music blaring, you're weaving in and out of traffic, you're not wearing your seatbelt, you're looking to enter the system at that point. Your activity and your action is looking to enter the system. So do the things that you know that are going to keep you out of the system. Don't go and shoplift. Don't go and loiter in the places that you know the police come by and they pull up and they start asking for everyone's ID because this is a known drug area and there's loitering. That's the system. So just don't go to those areas. Don't avoid those areas, those high drug and high crime areas, because you know if you go there, what's going to happen? You're walking onto that basketball court with that crooked ref. Avoid the system. If the system is broken, avoid the system the best you can. I mean, of course, there are situations where people have been literally minding their own business,
Yeah.
and the system comes to them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like the 1%, right? That's really the 1%. For 99%, you can avoid the system, and I would teach them the ways to do that. And if you do end up in contact with the system, this is how you conduct yourself.
Yes.
And it will increase your rate of just getting out and avoiding the system, and ultimately, in some cases, your survival. And the kids got it and they were amazed by it. The people who came up to me afterwards when I talked at these things were the parents. The parents were coming up, and because of social situations, there was a lot of grandmas there that are raising these little kids, and there was like quite a few single mothers there. They came up and they were like, that was incredible. Like that was, and then hearing it from someone who looks like you, talking to them in a manner that's just like real. That's you can tell your kid something, and they're gonna be like, oh, okay, But if someone else tells your kid the same thing, it hits differently, right? It comes off differently. And so the parents were like blown away. They're like, yeah, we've never heard someone who's from a law enforcement base or had law enforcement experience speak like this and talk about the system in that way. I said, they all said it. They would do it for a basketball game. They would avoid the system. You just got to do that here, and you stay on that straight and narrow path. That is it. That is it. And you manage. That's what I had to do. I had no choice because I recognized it early on. And I said, okay, this is what I got to do.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, my friends could do 5 or 10 over the speed limit in the town I grew up in. I couldn't. Yeah. I couldn't. I got pulled over for doing 3 miles over the speed limit or something. And I got a ticket. I think it was 7. And I got a ticket. I knew my friends wouldn't get a ticket if that happened to them, but I was the only one in town that had my tan, and that was the life I lived. So I quickly realized I have to adjust my actions to avoid the system. And after that day, I was able to. And I never got pulled over again. I never entered the system again. I never gave them an opportunity. I just did the speed limit. Did that suck? Yeah, because I'm like, hey, my buddies are kind of speeding a little bit. What's going on? But that was the reality. And I said, okay, I had 2 choices. I could say, F that. If they can do it, I'm going to do it. And I'd just be in the system every time I drove. Or I say, you know what? All right, I'm just going to follow the speed limit. I'm not going to speed. I'm going to have my seatbelt on. No tinted windows. My radio is always going to be low. 10 and 2. I'm going to make sure I always have my documents in my car in the event I did get pulled over. And there you go. There were times where I got pulled over for no reason at all, where I would actually ask the officer, I'm like, when we were all done, like, what did I get stopped for? Don't worry about it. You're free to go. Have a good day. Oh, okay. But I was respectful, had all my documents, and I moved on. Is that right? No, it's not right. It's really screwed up. However,
you entered the system.
I knew that I got pulled into the system. But hey, you know what? I got to move on. There are so many things in this world that are wrong.
Yeah.
And there are so many people in this world who are wronged. How you navigate it is up to you. You have to navigate that. You have to make a decision. And if you say this is effed up, and you're going to turn yourself into a victim about it, and your whole life implodes as a result of it, well, then they win. I just chose from a very early, I was like, yeah, no, okay, all right. Oh, if that's how it is, okay. I'm gonna be the guy that doesn't walk onto the court as best as possible. And if I find myself on the court with that crooked ref, I'm just gonna stay away from everybody. So he has he can't call a foul on me if I'm 10 feet away from the guy. Okay? And he can't say I'm out of bounds if I'm 10 feet away from the out of bounds line. So I'm gonna move. Oh, well, all the other white kids can be right on the line and they could be playing up close. Yeah, okay, maybe in that scenario, that's fine. But I know I can't. Is that wrong? Yes, it's wrong. But I know I'm not going to sit here and say, F that. I'm going to, no. Okay, this is the deal. In this situation right here, this is the deal. I'm out. I'm going to move accordingly. And it kind of changed the course of my life. It changed the course of my life. And then I see what happens to other people who have said, no, F that, that's screwed up. I'm just going to stand my ground. And okay, well, where are you now? Jail, broke, well, I don't know. But you decided to live your life a certain way, and there's a result. There's an outcome there. So I see it still in some areas of life today. And I know it's more ignorance. Most of the time it's more ignorance, and we talked about this. It's more ignorance than racism a lot of times. But ignorance exists, and you have to navigate it. There's hatred in this world against so many different people, so many different groups, and I don't think it's ever going to go away. It's never going to go away.
I don't think so.
It's never going to go away. Like that utopia where we live in a world where no one hates anyone else and everyone gets along. That I don't think that we're humans, right? We have different backgrounds of obviousness, things of that nature, and it's always going to be out there. So you have a choice. You can say, I'm a victim of this and my life is going to be less than because of it. Or you're going to say, okay, I notice it. I notice it. I'm just going to now walk, avoiding it. And if at any point it comes to me, I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be prepared, and I'm going to get out as soon as possible. And, a lot of people, because of the media, a lot of people are only looking at a lot of things with color and skin color, because that's what they want you to focus on. And now there's some other topics, but there are so many people of different walks of life that are persecuted, and there's hatred against that, because it's not obvious with skin color. People don't really talk about it, and I say, yeah, there's a lot of people who are dealing with that in their world today. I don't say, oh, it's just me because I look. No, there's so many people. And the message I share is the keeping your mood up, keeping your mindset up, and shifting and moving around strategically, tactically around these things to elevate yourself above all that,
Yeah, a lot of times we didn't get to choose our situation on Earth here as human beings,
Yeah.
Sure, we all would have had a different start, so to speak,
Yeah.
than we get.
Yeah.
Some people luckier than others, but we have to be aware of the situation that we are in, and then adjust accordingly if we want to live a peaceful life. And it doesn't make it right, because there's most things aren't right in the world that we live.
Yeah.
But I feel like I just try to tell people that all of these systems and the change that we want to see, it usually comes quietly from teaching the next generations in a different manner, right?
Yeah.
And we can have change over time through them, as long as we don't teach them the same fucked up outlooks and ways of handling things.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's great to hear somebody from coming from your place and with a background in the service, to say that, you know what I mean, to teach them that that's different, because most guys don't approach it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was one of the best parts of the job, actually.
Yeah.
Get to have those one-on-one, talks.
But I don't think that's done as much these days anymore.
No, and that's why I don't miss the job. Starting my business, and
How did you do that transition?
well, I started the business out of necessity for what I was doing. I was on the job and wearing body armor every day and sweating my what off.
Yeah, it's heavy.
And I originally went to school for medicine, and I had a background in the sciences, and I was just shifted after 9/11. After 9/11, I was in school. I was in studying to be a physician in New York, and 9/11 happened, and I was in the city. And of course, after that, I'm going to join the military. I'm going to go fight the people who did this, And my mom forbid me, so I ended up without her, without telling her, without her blessing, which was a really tough thing, having an Indian mother. If she could have murdered me legally somehow, she would have. And became a police officer. And while I'm a police officer, I'm wearing this body armor vest, and you're sweating like unbelievable all day long, and you're breaking out in rash and
The uniforms don't look comfortable.
No, they're not comfortable.
Yeah.
And
with all the gear.
It's awful.
Yeah.
And I said, how is this possible? This is what people just deal with all day. And I had no idea, right? I was never in the military. So I was like, this is what you guys walk around with? I was literally a year prior working in a lab as a nerd studying organic chemistry
In air conditioning.
on my track to become a physician. And a year and a half or whatever later, I'm wearing this heavy stuff, this heavy belt, and I was like, this is what you guys walk around with all day long? You wouldn't know it. And so I said, there's got to be a solution. So, of course, I went on the internet. I'm looking. There was nothing. There was nothing. How is this possible? There are how many police officers around the nation, but around the world?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, people who are security and whatever, you know, the guys who roll up in the Brinks trucks, you know, they're wearing vests and they're in it all day long. So it was kind of like the dog washing thing,
Yeah.
the car washing thing. I noticed. I said, wait a second. There's no solution to this, but everyone who has to wear that is complaining. All my squad mates, every cop I met, and there was no solution. I would ask people, hey, have you found anything that helps with that? I'm like, no, there's nothing that exists. Hey, have you ever found, hey, what do you do? Nothing, because there's nothing that exists. So boom, I was like, okay, good. So I decided to develop something. I developed something, and no shit, of course, it hit. You know, and that was the early days of Facebook, where you could put stuff on Facebook and literally everyone who followed you on Facebook would see it. Unlike today, where less than 1% see it. And that was it. And it took off. So I was able to get a patent on the material. I had to get on a 15-hour flight to Korea and get the material made in a factory there, and, you know, developed it, came back, and I didn't know how to sew. So I had to, developing the material was one part, and then they just give you a roll of the material. And then I had to bring it back here to the States, and I didn't know how to sew. So what I did was I opened up my body armor, and I cut, using scissors, I cut out the material to the shape of my body armor. And it's a 3D material that you wear underneath your bulletproof vest that allows airflow. So it's like a full vest as well, 360 under the shoulders and everything. And I didn't know how to. So I bought a sewing machine. I was trying to go on YouTube to learn how to sew, but I couldn't do the edging, like the edging around here, and it was sharp material.
Tough. Yeah,
so I was like, I'm using duct tape. I duct taped it. So I just did duct tape around, like, you know, so it wasn't poking me, and under the armpits. I duct taped it, went to work, used it, and it was a hit. It was a hit. It worked. And I finally took my vest off at the end of my shift, and my shirt wasn't soaked in sweat.
Wow.
And one of my coworkers saw it. He's like, bro, what are you using? I said, I got made this thing. Like, pull out the thing. It's like duct tape, like the silver duct tape, the real bad, ugly duct tape. I didn't even get the black because the material was
prototype.
It was real prototype.
Do you still have that one?
Somewhere. Yeah, somewhere. So he wore it. And the next day he said, I'm not giving this thing back. I said, really? Said,
with the duct tape?
With the duct tape. He
Okay.
said, I'm keeping it. So I said, how much would you pay for this? He said, bro, oh my God, I would pay whatever you told me, I would pay for it. Because he had broken out in the rash and the skin infection, all that stuff. So, you know, of course, you know, met with my business partner, Brad. And
was Brad on the force?
No, he's in the fabric and textile business. I actually met Brad in a course out here in California that was based in San Francisco. It was just a business mindset course, and Brad was in there. He is a business owner for a textile company, a fabric company in New York City. So when I came up with this idea, I immediately thought of him. So I went to him, and he said, well, there's this company in Korea that makes something similar. They might be able to make this for you. And so that's how it progressed. So, you know, called the product the Maxx-Dri Vest and put it on Facebook. I got an interview by a big police website called police1.com, and that's it. It went viral. We started selling them from a little trunk at a trade, literally from a trunk at a trade show in Atlantic City, New Jersey, to selling them worldwide. And it feels like it happened overnight, but it didn't. And then we started in my garage. And I was putting stuff into the mailing bags and driving to the post office down the road with my little white U.S. postal basket, dropping them off every day, you know. And then we grew from there. But that was, 2015-ish. And now, the company is, we're in 250 retail locations around the world. We have, gloves that are armored for. So all the products I developed for 221B Tactical came from me as a police officer saying, this sucks. Is there any solution for this? And everyone's saying, no, there's no solution. So then I'd go and I would create the solution for it. Yeah. And then something else would come up. I'd be like, this is horrible. How can we deal with this? And someone would be like, well, there's nothing, you got to deal with it. I said, nope, I'm going to create something. So I developed gloves that you can't get stuck by a needle. And, but
searching
they're still
people's pockets.
Yeah, but they're still flexible enough that you could feel stuff and you have some dexterity, and of course, God forbid, you could fire your weapon. Develop gloves that are cut resistant. That's the same thing. Develop base layer shirts that are infused with silver so they don't breed bacteria, so it'll prevent you from breaking out in those rashes, which is now big in the jiu-jitsu community. Because jiu-jitsu,
Yeah, they get the
We get it. You do jujitsu.
yeah. I didn't say that. So, we just kind of spawned into different areas, but it's all for stuff where there's a pain point, and there's no obvious or apparent solution that has been taken care of. And that's, so that's the whole business model of 221B Tactical. So we do stuff in spaces that aren't necessarily tactical. Like, we do stuff for the equestrian community. We created a saddle pad that goes underneath the horse's saddle that allows airflow, and it keeps the horse like 30% cooler.
Wow.
And that came out of this serendipitous thing with a photo shoot at a farm that happened to have a horse, and someone was like, wait a second, that helps cops wearing bulletproof vests? Could it help my horse in the saddle? So it was just it was serendipity there. So there's so many different uses for it. We have a product that we're incorporating now for baby seats, because we had the wife of a police officer who wrote to us and said, my husband's rash on his body from wearing his body armor was so bad, he actually couldn't wear his body armor anymore. And we have 2 little kids, and I don't want him going to work without it. But he literally said he can't. Your product helped save him. His rash cleared up, and now he comes home, his shirt is dry, and he wears his body armor every day. It makes me feel better because he's the father of our children. But I noticed that when I took his Maxx-Dri Vest and I put it in my baby's car seat, when I took my baby out of the car seat, his back of his head wasn't sweaty and the back of his whole body wasn't sweaty anymore. Could you make me one for the car seat? So I said, oh, this isn't, but I don't have a kid, so I would have known that. But that was a pain point, apparently, for parents, which I didn't know.
I haven't noticed that. Did they get that?
Yeah, they get super sweaty.
They get super sweaty.
Yeah, they're
right?
not breathable. It's like whatever that material
Oh,
is that
and
they
it's
put on
hard
that plastic.
It's
hard
plastic
on the other side. It's
right.
not breathing at all.
So we started getting development of that. So the material has a lot of uses, but I was able to use it in the space that I knew.
Yeah.
Right. Body armor for police, military, tactical, and but then these other things pop up, and you got to pivot. You got to look, and you got to pivot and look and find. And but that was a long way of saying I enjoy this now because we're taking care of problems and creating solutions. Where law enforcement, if I was still in law enforcement today, which based on time I would still have to be on the job, I wouldn't be eligible for you got to do 25 years, and I only did 13, and I look at that and I said I would not be able to do the job today. I see what's going on and what's going on in the media, what's going on in our country and social media, and I am so glad getting pushed out from my police department was at first felt like the worst thing that could have ever happened to me, because that was my career. I loved it. And getting pushed out because of what I dealt with and what I was trying to battle from within, which was, racism, and getting pushed out of my own department because I was the only one who looked like me at my department. But then you realize a short time later that that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Like, those people who didn't like me because of the color of my skin and what I was doing in the community, and starting 221B Tactical, and it was jealousy and it was hatred and animosity. Them pushing me out of the police department helped catapult everything else in my world. And I wouldn't have what I had. I wouldn't have gotten into the commercial real estate. 221B Tactical wouldn't be this global brand right now, because I would have been gripped working as a police officer trying to do a little bit on the side. So they helped me. Yeah. And so I share that story because there are so many times in life when people are so focused on the thing that's hurting them, and they're not focused on what may come of this hurt and what came. And I was like that for a minute too. Trust me. I was, I was like, man, screw these people. How dare they do this to me? But it took some time for me to realize that, man, what a great blessing that was, for them to do that to me. And so thank you. I'm sure some of you are watching and listening. Thank you, you guys, because you guys, that hatred and that racism, that animosity made me a multi-millionaire, and like grew the company and grew my portfolio. And now I'm able to do so many different things and help so many different people and work with so many people. Like, Brian and I've like networked with, and he's introduced me to great people. And none of that would have been possible if that initial pain and suffering didn't happen. So I tell people all the time, whatever you're going through, you can look at it as this is bad, this is against me, and why is this happening to me? Or you could say, I wonder what this is preparing me for. I wonder what, and just have that excitement of this is preparing me for something. I don't know what, but this is preparing me for something, and it's going to be great. It's going to be good. And it's a much better mindset to have on the journey, because I tell people, if you leave on a destination, like, growing up in New York, New Jersey, we were poor. So if we had to go to Florida, there was no flying. We drove in the car, right? And you're going to Disney World, or wherever you're going. And as a kid, you're excited. So there's two ways you could take that trip. You could take that trip, bitching and moaning about how long the drive is, how hot it is, because my mom didn't want to put the air conditioner on because she said it uses more gas, and we would need to save gas. So all this stuff, and you have this miserable time along the way. And then when you get there, you just kind of spent 2 days in a car in misery, and then you get there and your mood is different. But if you just say, I'm going to enjoy this entire ride, I'm going to sing, I'm going to play games, I'm going to have snacks, and I'm going to enjoy the entire ride and have a blast on the way there, we could get there and Disney could be closed for some reason. And we're like, well, it sucks, they're closed and we can't go. But we had a great time coming down, right? It was a great time. Okay, so let's just have a great time going back home. So enjoy the journey, because if at the end, when you get there, if it's not quite what you expected, that's okay. At least you had a great time along the way. And I tell people that when you're going through adversity, just shift your mindset and enjoy that journey, and don't focus on the people who try to hurt you or take you down or whatever. Just say, hey, this is happening for a reason. I'm just going to keep my mood up, because when you get to the end of it, and like what happened with 221B happened, you're like, man, that was awesome. That was awesome. So I had to shift. I kind of was like almost like a paradigm shift, and it's changed my mindset about a lot of different things. Kind of what we were talking about earlier. Even I used to eat a certain way, and I used to be like, oh, it sucks to eat this way. And then a couple of months ago, I was telling Brian about it. I shifted to this eating only whole foods. And essentially, my buddy put me onto it. He said, don't eat anything with ingredients.
That's it.
And I was like, what? And he's like, don't eat anything that has an ingredient label. Try it for 30 days. It'll change your life. And this was going back now, probably maybe 7-8 months ago now. I did it. And I did it for almost 2 months, just shy of 2 months. I can't tell you how different I felt. And we were talking about it earlier. I won't get down because it's a rabbit hole about organic food and all that stuff. And the stress about eating organic is bad for you, because people are like, oh, is it grass-fed beef? You stressing about that is actually worse for your body, right? It creates a chemical in your body that's equal to eating a tray of Oreos. So I tell people, don't stress. Just eat clean, whole foods and watch what happens. Do it for 30 days. I think you could do it for 2 weeks, honestly, and I think you could see a difference. But it was almost 2 months for me. And at first it was like, don't eat anything with ingredients. So of course I only drank water, and it was just fruits that I was getting at the local market. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, berries, and clean meats. And you wouldn't believe the difference. I feel like if most people just did that and drank a gallon of water a day for 2 weeks, people would feel like a different human being. And I had to change my mindset about it, because I was on that journey, and I was like, oh, I gotta eat an apple again. But then I switched my mindset. I think I told you a little bit of it. I said, oh man, it's 11 a.m. I get to have my berries and my pistachios or whatever. So I started getting excited about it. And then I actually found out it was almost easier to eat that way. And then I found out I was sleeping better. And then I found out my mood was better. And then found out I was more focused in meetings. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. I went from a point where I needed one of these to say, oh, I got to focus in my meeting coming up. I need one of these, to saying, I don't need anything.
Yeah.
I'm dialed in. It was a crazy, crazy feeling. And I think most people in today's society, with everything going on, they're focused on, who's in the White House and all this crazy stuff. Just like, zoom back into yourself. And if you just kind of change some habits, your daily habits, and change your mindset about a couple little things, watch how your life changes. And so when I do my talks to people, I tell people, start at home. Start with what you're eating. I don't care what's in your bank account. I don't care what. Start with how you're treating your body, and then watch all the different things in your life change. Because when you feel better about yourself, it's very hard for external things to adversely affect you. It doesn't happen. But when you feel bad, you're eating bad, you're drinking, you're doing things that are not bad, not good for you, and then something injects into your world, that waitress who's in a bad mood affects your mood that much more.
Yeah.
That person you bump into who is maybe pulls out in front of you in the road, that affects you that much more. But when you feel good and your mindset's clear, people cut me off, people are rude, whatever. I'm like, okay. It's just like your mindset's clear. It's totally a different way of living. And in today's world with all this craziness, I think people need that more than ever. I don't know.
I agree. Yeah, it does. It trickles downhill from there. We
Yeah.
got to start with the things that we can control. And for the people that say that it's expensive or that it's this, it's really not,
No.
It just takes a little bit of a different turn to
Different
focus in a
mindset.
different direction. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not hard.
No,
It's not hard.
As-
changing habits is hard
Yeah.
for us. Just doing something out of our norm. Go ahead. You had a question.
I was gonna do the final question.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
As we wrap up, is there anything you want the guests and viewers that we didn't touch know, and you would address that, camera?
I think we touched on a lot of things. You know what? We're living in this world where you go on social media and you can find a little bit of everything. You could find, 1,000 stories about what's going wrong in the world. You'll see 1,000 people apparently living a life that's better than yours. You're gonna find 1,000 stories of, different people that are hurt in different ways. But you have to, I would say the most important thing is you have to be the CEO of like your own world. As CEO of my company, there's so many things I have to look at every single morning. I sit down, I open up my laptop, I sit on my computer, and I look at all the vitals of my business, right? And we look at the KPIs and we look at everything that's happening. And I get almost like a health snapshot of what's going on. And then based on that, I kind of plan my day, my week, and my 30, 60, 90-day plan. If most people did that just for their life, for their own life in their own house, I think people would have almost like a revelation of, oh my God, like I don't really have an idea of what's going on. Most people have no idea what's going on with their finances. Most people have no idea what's going on with their health. Most people don't have any idea what they're even going to eat for a day, right? And that's like the most important thing, what you're putting into your body, and where it's coming from. Is it good for you? And so I've learned over the years, running companies, having, real estate portfolios, lots of stress and all that stuff. If you just take a snapshot for your own life and be the CEO of your own life, and you make a little bit of a plan for your own life and say, what are my goals? What are to me, the most important things I can do to run my everyday life? What am I going to put into my body today? Let's just start with that. How much water am I going to drink today? What am I going to put into my body today? Okay, now once we get that under control, what are my expenses? How much money am I going to put out today? And how much money is coming in today? Have control of that. Okay, how much time am I spending with my kids? and how much time am I spending scrolling on TikTok? Okay, so if the numbers are off there a little bit, you got to start adjusting that a little bit and become the CEO of your own world. I never thought of being the CEO of my life, right? I always thought CEOs are company. You're running a business. And if people started treating their lives like a little bit of a bit more of a business and more serious, I think, and you start worrying about you more. It's really easy to look and see a group of people out protesting something that doesn't even affect them, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I also have a little bit of, I don't know, like if you're out there screaming about something else going on somewhere else with people that and your own life is a disaster.
Yeah.
Right? You're 200 pounds overweight. You have $19 in your bank account. You have 50,000 in debt and all this stuff going on. But you're out screaming about some other cause that doesn't even affect you because it looks good that you're screaming about it. Because social media or the media tells you should be screaming about it. Some celebrity at the Oscars is doing something, wearing something, and they're screaming about it. So I should, let's go back to you. And I tell people, just go back to you and focus on you, and you'll see how everything in your life will change thereafter. And I think it changed my life. It changed my life, changed the course of my business. And I know that people I've shared this with, and they're serious about it, it's changed their lives. And I didn't do anything. I'm like, you did it. You just did what you needed to do, and they feel better. They've gotten better connected with their faith. They've been better connected with their family, their kids. Better handle on their finances, getting rid of stuff that are, negative addictions in their life. And they just say, you know what? I just started actually kind of treating my life like it's a business I'm running and checking the health of the business. And if most people do that for yourself, because you're the most important thing. I've never met anyone dying in a hospital bed, because I spent time in hospitals and have a lot of friends that are physicians. You never meet anyone in the ICU who's on their deathbed saying, I wish I would have worried about more shit that other people were doing and things that were going on in this world.
Yeah.
Never. They always say, I wish I would have focused on me a little bit more, my family a little bit more, and things like that. So
the only thing we can control.
That's it.
Can't control people, places, or things. We can control our own mindset, actions, and everything can lead from there.
Yeah.
It's a great close.
Yeah.
We really appreciate your time and your insight to what changed your life and the company and how it's changing lives. And thanks. Hopefully we'll have you back soon.
Yeah, I can't wait. Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
Where can people find you?
Oh, so company 221B Tactical, at 221B Tactical everywhere. And personal Instagram is at Suresh_actual, and then the podcast and some of the other coaching stuff is at Tactical Ambitions. So YouTube, podcast, Apple, Spotify, all that stuff. Yeah, Tactical Ambitions.
Right, I'll link it below.
All right, awesome.
Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys on the next one.